gentlemen, I am Mahan Veros, and I am privileged to be your MC for the first ever face-to-face general membership meeting since the pandemic started of the Management Association of the Philippines. On behalf of the MAP Board of Governors, I would like to call this MAP General Membership Meeting to order. Thank you. Please rise for the invocation to be led by MAP Treasurer Wilson B. Tan, Chair and Country Managing Partner of SGB and Company, and kindly remain standing after that for the Philippine National Anthem.
Before we pray, let us observe a moment of silence as we express our respect to the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and our deepest sympathies to our Japanese friends. Shall we pray? Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much, Lord, for this opportunity for MEP members and guests to gather together face to face after almost 2.5 years. We pray, Lord, for good health, wisdom, and good success for guest speaker, our former MEP President and now DTI Secretary, Mr. PASCUAL, as he leads DTI in helping the MSMEs in promoting the ease of doing business and enhancing the overall competitiveness of our country. We do pray, Lord, for our government leaders, both at the national and LGU level. In your word, Psalm 33, verse 12, you said that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And we pray, Lord, that our leaders will serve this country with fear of God, pervading their hearts and minds. Lord, we pray that you bless them not only with wisdom, but with integrity and good health, and give them a servant's heart so they will always prioritize the common good of our countrymen in fulfilling their mandate and leading our country through economic recovery. And as for us MEP members, help us, Lord, to be upright and moral citizens. Help us to steer our respective organizations or businesses to a more sustainable level of profitability so we could help create the needed jobs for countrymen in order to help reduce poverty and inequality. Make us generous of our time, talent, and treasure, especially to the least in the society, knowing fully well that we are but stewards of these resources that you have entrusted to us. May in everything that will be said and done in this event redound to your honor and glory, dear Father. All these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
for MAP governors for the year 2023 and 2024. Please sign up for the September 13 MAP International CEO Conference on the theme, The Winds of Change. Winds as in winds instead of winds. Thriving in a world of in-betweens. Thanks to the First Philippine Holdings and the business world for co-presenting this year's MAP conference. And thanks as well to PwC Philippines for continuing to be our knowledge partner. We'd also like to express our gratitude to our other sponsors, namely Premium Sponsors, Forecasting and Planning Technologies, Inc., or FPTI, SM Investments Corporation, and BDO. For privileged sponsor, Eon. Preferred sponsors, Meralco, Punong Bayan and Araulio Grant Thornton, SGV and Company, Shell, and Stratcom. Partner sponsors are Ayala Corporation, DOOH, Du Baladad and Associates, Megaworld, FINMA, PNB Life, Security Bank, Semirara Mining and Power Corporation. And our hotel partner, of course, is Shangri-La at the Fort. For media partners, we'd like to acknowledge Philippine Star and the Manila Times. So I do encourage you to take advantage of the early bird rates for the MAP CEO conference. For July, the early bird rates are 12,000 pesos per member and 14,000 for the guests. The rates will increase to 16,000 per member and 18,000 per guest in September. So you save quite a bit of money by signing up now. We go now to the induction of incoming MAP president by our outgoing MAP president. So today we will have the formal inaugural induction of MAP President Rogelio Babes L. Singson, who is now serving the unexpired term of former MAP President Alfredo Fred E. Pascual from July 1st to December 31st, 2022. May I now call on Secretary Babes Singson to please come on the stage. May I also ask Secretary Fred Pascual to serve as the induction officer. Secretary Pascual will now administer the oath of office. May we request everyone to stand up to give the proper solemnity to this occasion.
May I request President Babe Singson to raise his right hand and go through the oath of office.
I, Rogelio Lasso Singson, having been duly elected President of the Management Association of the Philippines, do hereby solemnly swear that I will well and faithfully discharge to the best of my ability the duties of my present position and all others I may have hereafter hold in the association. That I will obey and defend the Constitution and bylaws of the association. That I will dedicate myself to promote and uphold its ideals and objectives, and that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily without mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God.
Congratulations, President Singson.
Congratulations to our new president, Babe Singson.
Thank you.
Thank you for your round of applause. May we ask Secretary Pascual and Secretary Singson to please stay on the stage for the next two parts of our program. You may now be seated. The first one is the presentation of the Plaque of Appreciation to the outgoing MAP President. At this point, I now ask Secretary Singson to present the Plaque of Appreciation to Secretary Pascual. Once again, to express MAP's sincere appreciation, let's all give Secretary Fred a big, big round of applause. I think you still need to be on stage. At this point, may I now request the members of the MAP 2022 Board of Governors to come up on stage for a photo op with our two presidents. Vice President Donald Lim, Treasurer Wilson Tan, Assistant Treasurer Romy Bernardo, Assistant Secretary Alex Cabrera, Governor Chito Salazar, Governor Peter Wallace, and yours truly, Maan Ontiveros. While I would like to read you the plaque of appreciation to Secretary Pascual. No more? Let's skip that. At this point, we would now like to witness the turnover of the symbol of MAP Presidency to inspire Secretary Singson in pursuing MAP's vision of promoting management excellence for nation building. May I now request Secretary Pascual to please turn over the symbol of the MAP Presidency to Secretary Singson, with the MAP governors serving as witness. Once again, a warm round of applause for our two presidents as they return to their seats. Secretary Singson, you need to stay on stage. The new president of the MAP will now deliver his inaugural address. So another round of applause, please, for Secretary Babes Singson.
Thank you so much, Maan. Our distinguished speaker and our honored MAP President, Secretary Fred Pascual, honored guests from the diplomatic circle, our friends from the government, the academe, our good friends, very good friends from media, fellow MAP members, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to everyone. First, allow me to thank Secretary Fred Pascual for accepting again to serve this government and our country this time as DTI Secretary. And thank you also, Secretary Fred, for your service to MAP. I know, Secretary Fred, you will continue to serve our country well, for, as the saying goes, good men never tire of doing good. Thank you very much as well to the members of the 2022 MAP Board of Governors for their vote of confidence. As far as I'm concerned, as the saying goes, I am a collateral damage to Secretary Pascual's decision to accept DTI. Anyway, allow me to say briefly a few things about myself to many who do not know me. First of all, I never ran away from any challenges or meaningful assignments in my life. In fact, in all of my previous assignments, the one I enjoyed most were the non-traditional and challenging work. For example, shortly after I graduated from the UP Diliman many moons ago, as an industrial engineer, instead of working in a production firm or facility, I accepted an assignment in an NGO promoting rhythm family planning method to targeted provinces to be responsible parents in producing babies. Come to think of it, it's still production. Shortly after that, I was tasked to set up the management and operating systems of then the newly built Development Academy of the Philippines Training Center in Tagaytay. And I remember Prime Minister Virata, who is here with us. And eventually assuming full responsibility in managing the training center as the first resident manager of the facility. The other assignments were similarly non-conventional. My getting actively involved in my various capacities in the implementation of the Bases Conversion Development Act of 1992, putting into full operation the conversion of the former U.S. military baselands that included Subic Bay, Clark, John Hay, and Poro Point. I was also directly and actively involved in the privatization of the Fort Bonifacio and Villamor Air Base into the country's premier business centers. In particular, the Fort Bonifacio Global City, which set up new standards of development for huge property development. The only traditional but equally challenging assignment of late was my 6-year full term as DPWH Secretary from 2010 to 2016. But even then, I had to completely overhaul the public's perception of DPWH, both from inside the department as well as outside, including the halls of Congress. In fact, I would say especially the members of both houses of Congress, to ensure that all of them and everybody, both inside and outside, understood our new trust that we adopted and will implement diligently good governance principles and transparent and competitive procurement to reduce corruption and ensure the use of government's scarce resources for the right projects, right cost, and right quality. As your new MAP president for the next 6 months, let me emphasize, next 6 months, I would like to seek the support of all MAP members in their individual capacity and as leaders of your companies and spheres of influence to help the voice of MAP in what the MAP boards under then President Gigi Montinola and President Fred Pascual had prepared, a critical and strategic policy agenda for the incoming administration, in this case, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. We all agreed that there has to be a strong collaboration and partnership between the public and the private sector to create a more just, inclusive, and compassionate society. The public sector cannot be expected to do it alone without a meaningful engagement of the private sector, particularly the captains of industry and business, to work together for the common good. To help in this collaboration, the MAP will be undertaking what an expert calls advocacy communications plan. And of course, a lot of lobbying and engagement. We hope to get the attention of the concerned officials and agencies in government and the private sector as well in these particular areas with our advocacy plan. Let me briefly mention these critical and strategic priority policies for economic dynamism that the MAP board has identified with the help of many of you, the MAP committee chairman, its members, and subject experts. First, in education. To address the country's urgent education crisis, particularly to strengthen basic education and the malnutrition happening in our country. Second, health, to make quality health care accessible to every Filipino. Third, in agriculture and agribusiness, to achieve an agriculture and agribusiness sector marked by high productivity and international competitiveness that ensures food security for all Filipinos. Fourth, trade and industry, to ensure trade and industry policy environment that fosters level competition, lowers cost of doing business, and encourages productivity-enhanced innovations, and to ensure Filipinos wide access to quality goods and services at lower and stable prices. In infrastructure, to sustain the gains of the Build program of the past administrations by prioritizing infrastructure of greatest strategic importance and resume the active public-private partnerships in infrastructure development and implementation. Sixth, labor and employment, to institutionalize labor flexibility and welfare through executive action and legislation for quick employment generation, and recognize that labor market and employment policies are a critical ingredient in enabling environment for investments. Seventh, fiscal and financial policies, to ensure that the fiscal and financial policies must be supportive of business enterprises, especially the small and micro enterprises, to promote wider job generation, particularly in the countryside. Finally, in the area of justice, that justice and rule of law must be upheld if business confidence is to be sustained and the general population to live in an atmosphere of peace and security, particularly ensuring government transparency, zero tolerance for corruption, faith in government institutions, and upholding civil liberties and freedom of the press. MAP has released this to media. The details and specific of these 8 priorities and strategic areas after undergoing 6 revisions. We hope that all of us at MAP will be engaged in advocating any or even all of the priority areas, especially those areas where we are comfortable with. Aside from these areas, let me share what the MAP's Human and Management Development Committee created with experts, panelists, as they discuss Dr. Nick Poblador's views from his view, A New Age of Capitalism in the Philippines, and MAP's strong support for small and micro enterprises. The consensus was again very clear: the need for collaboration and partnership between government and the private sector to ensure inclusive and diverse growth of our economy. The discussion was in line with MAP's 2022 theme of push for change towards a better future for all, particularly on the main thrust of shared prosperity and sustainability. The expert panelists agreed that MAP should push its members in supporting SMEs in lifting the bottom 40% to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. In particular, we advocate and hope to practice in our own organizations the following policies. First, addressed to Secretary PASCUAL, to propose to DTI Secretary Fred and other concerned government agencies, both national and local levels, to substantially deregulate the micro and small enterprises. Let them grow, for heaven's sake. Let them grow as fast as they can, instead of harassing them and regulating them even before they can start. Let them contribute to the economy and employment generation, especially, as I said, in the countryside. there is no need to spend scarce government resources trying to regulate these small and micro enterprises. For the big business, I address this to MAP members and as well as to government institutions to support micro and small enterprises in the procurement of supplies and materials and ensure timely payment to these SMEs. Please pay them within 30 days or shorter, but don't pay them after 120 days to help them from predatory lenders. Let's promote micro and small enterprises and make room for them in purchases and supply requirements, both in government at the national and local levels and at the private sector. Finally, we propose to freeze all field tax audits of micro and small enterprises unless an apparent crime is being committed to avoid huge friction costs and source of harassment. Finally, during that forum, there is agreement that the captains of industry and business leaders cannot continue on using the traditional shareholders' interest and financial bottom line as its measure of success, but rather how the enterprise contributes for the wider shareholders, to the general public, and to its contributions to nation building. In particular, measuring their contribution to the economy, to social justice, addressing the bottom 40% poor, good governance, and the protection of the environment and our Mother Earth. Finally, as your MAP President, with your engagement and cooperation, I would like to offer myself as the MAP's principal lobbyist to push our priority and strategic policies for a more just and compassionate society, for shared prosperity, and for the common good. Thank you very much, and hoping for your full support.
Thank you, Secretary Babes. We are now ready for the presentation and induction of new MAP members. So at this point, may I ask Gigi Montinola, the chair of the MAP Membership Committee and former president of MAP2, to come up and do us the honors.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to announce that this afternoon we are inducting 5 new MAP members who will increase our total membership from 1,060 to 1,065. May I now read the names of our inductees. The first is Mr. Juan Manuel Hoyos, President of Nissan Philippines, line of business, manufacturer and distribution of motor vehicles. Sponsors, Attorney Francis Lim and Secretary Fred Pascual. Second, Ms. Dana Maharakon, Managing Director of Lala Move Philippines. Line of business, logistics services and express delivery by connecting users with delivery drivers on its mobile and web apps. Sponsors, Ms. Marian Hontiveros and Attorney Francis Lim. Third, Ms. Malin Rita Malin B. Molina, President and COO of the Eon Group. Line of business, consumer and corporate PR, reputation management and public affairs, digital marketing and creative technology, and experiential marketing. Sponsors are Mr. Juni Del Mundo and Ms. Alma Rita Jimenez. Please. Hi, good to see you. Okay. Fourth is Ms. Yin Yen Tu, also known as Ms. Rachel Thu, Managing Director of Jardine Schindler Philippines. Line of business, elevator and escalator supply, installation and maintenance. Sponsors are Mr. Aloysius B. Colaico and Attorney Francisco Lim. Fifth, we have Mr. Ramamurthy Venkatesh, the Managing Director of Moog Controls Corporation Philippines. Line of business, manufacturer of electro-hydraulic servo valves, controls motors for use in aerospace and industrial applications. Sponsors are Attorney Francis Lim and Secretary Fred Pascual. At this point, I would like to call on our MAP President, Mr. Babe Singson, to lead the induction of our new MAP members. May I please request everybody to please rise to add solemnity to the occasion. Thank you. Congrats, huh? That's a good number. Huh? I'm supposed to go.
Congratulations to our new members. So let's give them one more round of applause. Okay, now we've settled down. We're ready for the main event for this afternoon. In line with MAP policy and in the interest of time, we will dispense with the lengthy introduction of our speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest speaker, our very own former president and now the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, Secretary Alfredo E. Pascual.
Isang mapagpalat, mapagpalayang hapon sa inyong lahat. Thank you for your warm welcome. I congratulate former Secretary Babe Singson for his election as the MAP President for the second half of 2022. I don't think it's a collateral damage. It's the benefit of being there at the right time, you know. Thanks to MAP for allowing me to speak before the MAP members and guests as the new Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry. MAP and DTI share a vision. We both want to see our country sustain its economic recovery and growth, attract foreign and domestic investors, improve the ease of doing business, create more high-quality jobs, and help the MSMEs in our midst. In line with MAP's 2022 theme, we want to push for change to promote a better future for all. While the country has shown remarkable growth despite the pandemic, our industries continue to contend with increasingly stiff competition from our neighbors in both domestic and export markets, while novel technologies from the fourth industrial revolution or Industry 4.0 are changing the global market dynamics. To survive and thrive, business enterprises in our country need to embrace innovation and pursue digitalization. Doing so requires even more improvements in our human capital, technology capability, infrastructure, and legal and regulatory environment. Amid these challenges, DTI is embarking on a strategy driven by science, technology, and innovation, or STI, to prepare our country for a better future. The goal is to grow our economy and develop globally competitive and innovative industries that support inclusive growth and quality of life for all Filipinos. DTI as a government agency will leverage the power of partnerships and collaborations in developing and implementing our programs and projects. DTI's partners may include, and mainly, of course, the private sector businesses, civil society organizations, and/or academic institutions. DTI will also collaborate with other government agencies in pursuing its priorities, as I will point out in the rest of my talk. Let me now discuss some key DTI priorities for the next few years and encourage you to view these priorities as opportunities for both DTI and MAP to work together for shared goals. Priority 1, update, upskill, and upsize micro, small, and medium enterprises. I noted that MAP has created a new group where only micro and small are together. That's fine. In any case, the number of medium enterprises is very low. It's less than 5,000. Large enterprises, although also less than 5,000, in a field of more than 1 million registered enterprises. MSMEs are the backbone of our economy, comprising 99.5% of business establishments in the country, employing 63% of the workforce, and contributing almost half of our gross domestic product. For MSMEs to continue to grow and develop and graduate from micro to small, from small to medium, and medium to large eventually, we need to address the constraints to access finance, technology, and markets. To upgrade, upskill, and upsize MSMEs, DTI will promote digitalization and digital transformation programs for MSMEs in collaboration with the Department of ICT. By using e-commerce platforms, MSMEs can access bigger markets for their products. Digital systems operated by startups like Grow-Sari, for example, are already connecting sari-sari stores to manufacturers and financing firms, and can accumulate cash flow data on sales and other transactions, and use enterprise data for credit scoring, and provide access to cash flow-based credit. We always talk about cash flow-based financing, but in reality, it has not been happening because of the lack of data. Hopefully, digitalization will solve that problem. In addition, DTI, in partnership with the ICT, is going to offer an e-commerce platform for free to all MSMEs. It's a very simple system. I've seen it already demonstrated. A small enterprise can quickly set up an online storefront, get orders, and receive payment digitally. DTI will implement Science, Technology, and Innovation, STI, in our programs in collaboration with DOST. With STI-driven strategies and programs, MSMEs will be better positioned to address growth challenges and meet changing market demands for quality new products and services. By embracing digital transformation, MSMEs can operate efficiently, reduce costs, and earn profits while manufacturing more affordable products. Adopting new technologies and digital platforms will lead to competitiveness improvements that allow MSMEs to integrate in domestic supply and value chains, as well as to penetrate the global value chain of multinational companies. Priority 2, foster industries geared to the domestic market. Our country has 110 million people who represent a sizable consumer market with a strong growing middle class. Such a large consumer base should attract the establishment of industries that target gains and benefits from the potential of domestic demand from the country's consumer market. Building a solid domestic base is essential to support eventual forays into the export market, especially in developing agri-based manufacturing industries. In developing domestic industries, our country needs to strengthen local preference, particularly in government procurement, and develop mechanisms for supporting domestic production capacity through such purchase orders. The government procures millions of digital devices, and most of this supply is coming from foreign suppliers. You know, the money used to purchase these devices can already spawn an industry here producing digital devices. We can also consider limited government equity investment to catalyze new industries. And DTI has the National Development Company. Remember the old NDC? That can seed pioneering ventures. Aligned with DTI's STI-driven strategy, the establishment of the Center for Artificial Intelligence Research and Development and the Industry 4.0 Pilot Factory can serve as drivers in creating new and innovative products and services using the latest technologies like AI. The AI Center and the Pilot Factory can help solve issues and problems affecting the operations and competitiveness of growing enterprises. DTI will help make such enterprises become globally competitive and innovative market players. New technologies offer new opportunities to create new enterprises and employment. Many breakthrough innovations are coming from startups. DTI will continue to support the growth and development of a robust startup ecosystem by providing acceleration and incubation services, as well as linking startups with farmers, MSMEs, and the universities in the various regions of the country, not just in the National Capital Region. An effective startup ecosystem is crucial in unlocking the potential of innovation and use of new technologies, leading to the creation of more new products, services, and new business models. Priority number 3, promote and support regional development. To address regional growth and development disparities in the country, DTI will promote and support regions and urban centers specializing in industries where they have the most competitive advantage. DTI's One Town, One Product, or OTOP program will be broadened to have a regional scope based on the region's natural endowments and competitive or comparative advantage. DTI will partner with the National Academy of Science and Technology, or NAST, and the Philippine American Academy of Science and Engineering, or PAASE, to innovate the OTOP. DTI regional offices will work with their respective regional development councils to advance the implementation of production-based regional development. DTI will also collaborate with CHED and DOST in strengthening a selected state university in each region to serve as the knowledge hub in the region. The chosen university will perform research and development function for enterprises, especially MSMEs, and train entrepreneurs and enterprise employees, among others. In the future, the state universities and colleges in a specific region, and there are many, by congressional districts, can be clustered and amalgamated to form a regional university that will serve as the region's inclusive innovation center, just like in a number of advanced economies in Europe. Such inclusive innovation centers will be the platforms for linking startups, spin-offs, and MSMEs with other stakeholders such as funders or lenders, R&D outfits, science and technology parks, accelerators and incubators, government, and other service providers. These platforms will promote a more innovative culture and accelerate the commercialization of R&D outputs in the regions. Priority 4, ensure the availability of accessible and affordable food supply. This is a more immediate priority, as you know why. To help address the food security challenges, especially at the present time, DTI will collaborate with the Department of Agriculture to improve the food value chains through upgraded transport and logistics facilities, including cold storage and cold chain facilities, also needed for pharmaceuticals. Moreover, DTI will increase community-level value-adding and pursue effective local government-enabled market matching mechanisms for food waste reduction. DTI will promote digital technology to assist in streamlining agricultural supply chains, to link producers directly to the markets and possibly eliminate rent-seeking intermediaries through technology-led systems. DTI will transform the agriculture and agribusiness sectors through adoption of new technologies and innovation. Some Filipino agritech startups are already providing digital services to farmers. An example is Agraba Marketplace, which empowers Filipino farmers to an online platform that connects them to institutional consumers and partners. Second example is eMagsasaka. It strives to shorten the supply chain of fresh fruits and vegetables by forecasting the harvest of farmers weekly and marketing their produce before actual picking. A third example is Fax Forward, which provides a portable GPS tracker with RFID technology used in supply chain management to help farmers and improve their productivity. DTI will work with DICT to see how we can bring together these disparate systems. Priority 5, reconfigure Philippine export sectors into industry clusters. Manufacturing in the country guarantees sustainable and inclusive growth because it provides more stable and higher-paying jobs. DTI will lead in positioning for success in the manufacturing sectors in which we possess strategic advantages. Given the consumer trends and acceleration of the adoption of new technologies in the last 2 years of the pandemic, The World Bank has identified 3 industry clusters in collaboration with DTI as potential sources of growth in the country. DTI will reconfigure its exports to prioritize the industrial sectors in 3 clusters. First cluster, industrial, manufacturing, and transport. Second cluster, technology, media, and telecommunication. Third cluster, health and life sciences cluster. The industrial, manufacturing, and transport, IMT cluster, provides the Philippines with upgrading opportunities in aerospace, aircraft interiors, aircraft maintenance, repair, and overhaul, automotive, particularly electric vehicles, and semiconductors. So 3 sectors in this cluster. Over the last decade, the Asia-Pacific, the fastest-growing region for airline activity, benefited from the introduction of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, the production of which spurred a wide geographical spread of suppliers. The Philippines hosts the #1 aircraft interiors company in the world. This is Collins Aerospace. The Philippines also hosts the world's leading aircraft maintenance, repair, and overhaul, MRO, company. This is Lufthansa Technik. However, extra effort is needed to attract other suppliers to expand the cluster here in the Philippines. The switch from combustion engine to electric vehicles will be the main change in the automotive global value chain. Automotive companies are committing to switch to all EV manufacturing in the near future, and this change will provide some opportunities for the Philippines to enter the electric vehicle global value chain. Finally, the semiconductor industry will benefit from the recent boost of digitalization during COVID-19 pandemic. However, outsourced semiconductor assembly and test, the segment in the Philippines, is most vulnerable to disruptive technologies. Vietnam, for example, is starting to overtake the Philippines in the electronics contract manufacturing segment. Increasing skills to undertake R&D functions could help improve business for outsourced semiconductor assembly and test. There are various firms in this sector in the Philippines now, but they are facing competition. The opportunity for the Philippines lies in upgrading its participation in electronics and electrical parts and components of the global value chains, a common thread between these 3 IMT sectors, by attracting FDI in design capacity so that more value added is captured and manufacturing retained and expanded in the country. DTI will continue to develop the country into a center of excellence in the design of semiconductors and strengthen the electronics sector. With the pandemic, interest in data centers has increased across the globe. The Philippines is now seen as the destination of new data centers that are being established worldwide. The local data center market has seen significant activity, and a number of these prospective locators here have already called on me to discuss their plans. And they have been announcing their plans to develop facilities across the country, not just in the National Capital Region. And there are new fiber optic cables also coming from North America and ending in the Philippines. The Philippines has become an attractive location for hyperscalers as the country taps social media and internet usage worldwide. Growth in e-commerce adoption increased substantially from 76% to 80% in 2020 and 2021, respectively. The second cluster, technology, media, and telecommunication, TMT cluster, will provide the Philippines opportunities from the pandemic-driven digitalization of services. The key trend for the BPO sector moving forward is the switch from cost saving to value adding or value addition, where we need more skilled labor. The next decade will also witness the BPO segment as a cross-cutting contributor to competitiveness and efficiency in the other global value chains they support. Artificial intelligence-based cloud analytics and enterprise resource planning, or ERP, will continue trending while working from home will be here to stay for many. That 82% of BPOs and shared services centers in the Philippines serve global markets is a positive attribute that can be leveraged by targeted policies to increase the country's participation in the TMT Global Value Cluster. The third cluster. With the health crisis at the root of the current global economic distress, the Health and Life Science, or HLS cluster, plays a strategic role or security role, opening income-generating opportunities in all countries, including the Philippines. Over the next decade, manufacturing medicines faster and cheaper will continue to be the mantra of multinational companies. The sector will also witness smaller, innovative, more agile companies taking a more critical role in bringing medicines to the market. The Philippines is a significant constraint. The nascent nature of life sciences and biotechnology ecosystem in the Philippines is a significant constraint to the growth of the biopharmaceutical sector in the country. However, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, healthcare devices move to be more integrated. As they move to be more integrated, could also facilitate the emergence of an HLS cluster in the Philippines. In the pharmaceutical sector, DTI will encourage multinational pharmaceutical companies operating domestically to outsource their contract manufacturing to local players, while we encourage the local tolling companies to start producing their own brand of medicine in the country. Concerning our traditional mineral exports, this is quite apart from the global value chain that we're talking about in these three clusters. DTI will promote the processing of green metals such as copper, nickel, and cobalt before exporting them. The Philippines has an estimated 1.1 metric tons of copper reserves, 2 billion metric tons of nickel reserves, and 260,000 metric tons of cobalt. Mineral processing is crucial given our resources that can be used for downstream industries such as electric vehicle battery manufacturing, wiring, harness production, hyperscaler data centers, and renewable energy projects. With the vast resources of metals that could serve as critical inputs for the production and manufacture of technology products, the Philippines can be a vital partner in these essential minerals, not as an exporter of ore, but as a processor and producer of semi-finished and finished products. Indonesia did it for nickel. They banned the export of nickel, where they were earning previously $1 billion a year. Now, with further processing, they have increased the revenues sixfold. They're now earning $6 billion a year from the same quantity of nickel. Priority 6, enable job skills matching and skills upgrading. Very critical in a technology economy. Tapping the benefits from adoption of new technologies would require increasing investments in skills development, along with greater efforts by companies to upskill their workforce to perform new and higher order roles complementary to machines. Current systems of learning and signaling job fit do not provide the agility that lifelong learners will require, hence the need to shift to a skills-based approach that can provide more efficient mechanisms. DTI will collaborate closely with DepEd, CHED, and TESDA to match student skills development with job requirements of industries. This will entail implementing circular reforms to integrate 21st century skills, curricular reforms to integrate 21st century skills into our education system, and designing human resource development and training programs to improve skills and upskill our workers. DTI will also continue collaborating with DepEd, CHED, and TESDA to implement the Philippine Skills Framework to ensure the match between jobs and skills. Employers can use the Skills Framework to identify the necessary skills and competencies, while job seekers can define ways forward or upward in a particular industry. For educational institutions, the framework is used to revise existing curricula and design new courses to bridge the skills and competencies of workers as they upgrade to the desired occupations. The priority sectors for developing skills frameworks are manufacturing, construction, logistics, and supply chain, health and wellness, food and agriculture, creative industry, tourism, and IT BPM. Priority 7, improve ease of doing business. Creating an enabling environment by improving the ease of doing business is necessary to attract local and foreign investments as well as new businesses into our country. DTI will work towards reducing regulatory burdens through streamlining and digitalizing institutional and regulatory requirements and expanding the Ease of Doing Business Act in coordination with DICT by increasing investment in digital infrastructure. DTI will also support the e-government initiatives of DICT and collaborate with DILG, the Department of Interior and Local Government, in getting LGUs to digitalize their operation using standard software so they can be more efficient in dealing with businesses. And we can truly implement MAP's recommendation that a small business, the regulatory requirement is initial registration, but a couple of years, no other reporting or compliance requirements. On another front, DTI will implement measures to foster greater investment and competition in logistics and connectivity services. DTI will place to inspire confidence in both firm and customers. In close collaboration with other agencies of the government like DPWH, DOTR, and DICT, DTI will help fill the country's infrastructure gaps, especially in physical and digital connectivity. Increased infrastructure investment in physical and digital infrastructure, power and logistics, and modern and efficient air, land, and sea infrastructure will reduce business costs and boost industry competitiveness and aggregate productivity. Priority 8, create an enabling environment for attracting investments and expanding exports. DTI will continue to push for the immediate ratification of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or RCEP, and other trade agreements. With only 10 FTAs, the Philippines has the least number of FTAs among the ASEAN 6 countries. Singapore signed 27 FTAs, Malaysia 17, Thailand 15, Indonesia 15, Vietnam 15. These agreements will diversify the country's exports in terms of products and services and country destinations, and enhance the country's attractiveness to foreign investments. Most foreign investments in China, for instance, are export-oriented industries. They are from big multinationals having transferred their production facilities to China and using China as a production place. Without FTAs and RCEP, the Philippines would not be an attractive location for such types of export-oriented enterprises. Priority 9, protect and empower the consumers. As the country moves toward post-pandemic economic recovery, technical infrastructure and critical services that aid industry development, spur economic activities, and ensure maximum consumer protection must be in place. DTI, through its Consumer Protection Group, will intensify consumer protection measures by establishing mechanisms that will empower consumers, including enhancing consumers' rights. DTI will also help ensure availability of basic and necessary products and the primary commodities or prime commodities at reasonable prices by closely monitoring prices and negotiating with manufacturing and curbing hoarding and cartel operations. To this end, DTI will track the price shifts from raw materials to finished products. DTI will conduct an intensive review and verification process on granting requests for price adjustments. To raise the quality of the Philippine products and services, improve market access, and increase competitiveness in the domestic and international markets, DTI will promulgate all available international standards as Philippine national standards. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are international standards. It's a matter of adapting them. DTI will apply digitalization and automation solutions to product standards that adapt to the changing needs of its stakeholders in the digital era. DTI will strengthen its monitoring and enforcement function on online businesses, the area of business that has yet been untouched by regulatory agencies, in compliance with the country's product standards particularly. We consider consumer protection a priority since the consumer is essentially the heart of a business and a partner in nation building. Priority 10, transform DTI into an agile organization. In line with President Marcos Jr.'s directive for right-sizing the bureaucracy, DTI will review the organizational structure and processes and cut or reduce bureaucratic layers and decision-making caused by a hierarchical structure. With the shift to digital technology, DTI will improve employees' digital expertise and skills and empower them in their respective jobs. DTI will be transformed into an agile organization, and to fully harness the capabilities of our people, DTI will break down silos between departments and between DTI and its attached agencies and GOCCs. In closing, I invite you all, my colleagues and friends in MAP, to join me in reigniting the private sector as our country's engine of growth. Run with me in resetting the momentum, not in a 100-meter dash, but in a sustained marathon of sorts, facing a multi-kilometer run challenge to revitalize the heart of Philippine commerce and strengthen the muscle of industry. We in DTI will assist businesses do well in terms of profits, but we will also encourage them to do good by sharing prosperity with all business stakeholders. Thank you. Mabuhay ang MAP.
We are now ready for the Q&A portion, so may I call on the Vice President of MAP and the COO of Dito CME Holdings, Dr. Donald Lim, who is a Q&A moderator. Donald, take it away.
Thank you, man. Good afternoon. Thank you, Secretary, Secretary Fred Pascual, no, for your sharing with us your priority programs. I really felt that when you were going through programs, I find them to be very progressive, and at the same time, very clear your use on digital to harness and empower the MSMEs. So having said that, maybe, so this is a Q&A session for everyone. If any one of you would have any questions, just raise your hand and I will acknowledge you, and then you can come to the microphones that are out there and you can ask your questions. Okay, so I'll ask and I'll throw the first question to our good secretary first. Okay, and then later on I'll open the floor for everyone. So Secretary, these programs are again very progressive and very clear on what you want to do. What do you think would be 2 weeks in office? What do you think are the major stumbling blocks, or that would slow down all of these great plans that you have?
Biggest stumbling block is always budget allocation from the government.
Budget
Still
meaning-
have to work on increases in the budget allocation for DTI, given the many new things that we would like to go into.
like yung artificial intelligence center, that's something massive.
By the way, the Artificial Intelligence Center will be a public-private partnership. We're talking to large corporates that are interested in the center, and they will be the major investors in the AI center.
Maybe that can be a good strategy, go more PPP, given the
Yes,
budget constraints.
PPP is the trick, as I have emphasized in the early part of my talk.
Okay. Sige, I'll turn Clink first. Yeah, then Mon, you're recognized. You're after. And then Attorney. Okay. Oh, dami. Okay, marami. Okay.
Sec Fred, good afternoon. Over here.
Clink, ang.
Clink Ang, Manila Times. Clink Ang, Manila Times, sir. So I'm glad you've mentioned RCEP, and I've heard from the news that the President may harbor some reservations about it. I was wondering if you could give us some insights on what the objections are and what are the chances of the RCEP ratification being included in the priorities of the President in the 19th Congress.
Well, RCEP is a priority of the administration. We have clarified this in one of our cabinet meetings.
So it's a priority. I'll go to Cora next, then Mon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Just 2 quick points. As a country, we are a maritime and archipelagic nation. I will just request that we give sharper focus on developing what we call a blue economy, which will be focusing on the 7,641 islands and their maritime and marine characteristics. The second point is GDP right now is focused on measuring manufactured goods and services, and indirectly human capital, the other capital form, and almost no focus at all on natural capital. On human capital, I understand that the fastest growing sector is the one represented by those of us who are honest enough to accept that we are senior citizens. And yet, I think that is the sector that is not respected well enough, starting with the use of the icon with a man with a cane, as if, we are so unproductive already. So, maybe request that we look at this sector and make use of them in our development process.
Thank you, God.
Well, I wanted to cover all those things, but I'm just the Secretary of Trade and Industry. I've already, impinge on the turf of my colleagues, If you saw the papers, my comments on education was picked up by media, and technically that's not supposed to be my responsibility, but I'm coming from the side of industry who need skills. Well, I'm very much aware of the archipelagic configuration of our country, that there is greater sea area than land area, and a lot of potential in the blue economy. There is, the book, the study, the foresight study, prepared by the National Academy of Science and Technology, the Pagtanaw 2050, that has a lot of suggestions on how we can develop these areas beyond the land mass of the country. But I don't want to handle it. The Department of Agriculture, who is the president, might not, look at it. But I'm sure he will listen to suggestions. As I said earlier, I'll be collaborating with, as you must have heard, I'll be collaborating with many other departments in the cabinet.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sec. Okay, I'll get the floor to Mon.
Yeah, Secretary Pascual, your efforts to revitalize the MSME sector are well applauded. I think the reality that we're facing right now is that fuel costs are skyrocketing. Where do you see yourself and DTI in this particular issue that is staring right in our faces?
Well, we are talking of imported inflation. There is not much we can do to address directly the rising prices. All we can do is manage the aspect which we can take care of, like demand, or the search for alternative sources of energy. For example, nuclear is now on the table. Definitely, we will consider the use of nuclear power, but the large nuclear power plants would also require a few years to set up. But there are modular power plants that are available in a number of, in some countries, so we can get them. It's a continuing challenge. When I was interviewed one time, they say price of wheat is going up, bread is getting more expensive. Now what do? We cannot bring down the price of wheat arbitrarily because that's imported with a particular price. So I think what we can do is manage our own demand, the demand side. Go for alternatives, go for substitutes. The Bakers Association has already done it. The president is my neighbor, and before that was implemented, he told me that we will begin using cocoa flour from coconut, up to 10% of the dough, the mix, to replace at least 10% of imported wheat. And there are other substitutes you can think of.
Okay, thank you. So I'll have June and then Attorney Lorna.
Yeah. Congratulations,
Go ahead, June.
Secretary Fred. And I remember 2011, the Philippines was forecasted to be in the top 19 economy of the world by 2025, number 16 by 2050. And the Board of Governors of MAP, I was then president, our theme was developing a culture of integrity, addressing corruption, criminality, and climate change. Yeah, and the question is, when will we make it to the first world, top 20 economies of the world? And I think we need at least 3 good presidents with visionary leadership, strong political will, good appreciation of unbiased urban planning, good design, and good governance. When do you think, crystal ball, when will you make it to the first world and the 20 top economies of the world? Thank you, sir.
Your guess is as good as mine in terms of pinpointing the date. But we can be sure that we're moving towards that direction. That's what's important. That we're not retrogressing, that we have the vision expressed by our new president as to where he wants to bring the country. And he has organized or brought together a team with very well-established experience. Many of them have served before in the government, and they're back. I'm one of the few exceptions. This is my first job in government, although I serve as UP president, but that's different. UP has always been seen as an autonomous entity.
Thank you, sir. It's a good cabinet. Wala nang OJT of apprentice. You hit the ground running. Thank you.
Oh, wala nang OJT
Thank you.
sa cabinet.
Thank you.
Even at all levels. But rest assured that the direction has been set, and we're moving towards that direction. And there are so many imponderables. It's hard to set, a guess on when we will be in the first world. But the first world is also, in a way, deteriorating. So we might meet in the middle.
Thank you. Thank you, Jun. Attorney, Lorna Kapunan. I'll address Lorna and then I'll go to you.
Hello, Secretary. I just had to ask this because it's a very good plan, but the pandemic has shown us that the best economist is the mother of the house, the nanay. We're the home economist. No? Where in this whole program is gender lens, number one, and number two, we have deteriorated in the World Economic Index Forum ranking because in the last administration, there were very few women in the cabinet. In your department, we are looking towards having more women helping you. Aside from us in Women's Business Council, of course, who have committed to, we have signed a blood compact with you to be your policy partners in the DTI. So, meron bang gender lens itong priority program natin? Thank you.
One of the first groups I met, even before I assumed office, was a group representing women. That's, well, I don't know, it has become second nature to me, already. When I was UP president, I had a balance in my cabinet, same number of women as the number of men. In my team now, it's also a balance, So far, the top layer is 3 women, 3 men. I don't know about myself. I think I don't have I have the consciousness, of the needs, the advantages of having women in the organization. But I didn't explicitly address it anymore. For me, at this stage, it has already become second nature. I didn't have to rub it in,
Thank you. Okay, sir, and then I'll go
Good
to you.
afternoon, Secretary Fred. In the previous, your predecessor was pushing for the removal of duties for electric vehicles. Would that be the same direction with you now being the Secretary of Trade and Industry?
There is such a proposal, bringing the tariff on electric vehicles down to 0. To be able to, the idea, I think, is to be able to populate the country with a critical mass of or number of electric vehicles, so the setting up of charging stations could proceed. Okay, so that, but eventually the objective is to manufacture the vehicles here, the electric vehicles in the country.
Okay. Sir, sige ma'am. Kayo muna. Sino?
Yes. Fred, nice speech, and thank you for informing all of us for everything that DTI is embarking on. Wanted to ask you, you say a lot about developing different sectors, etc. But you know that there's a lack of leadership in many sectors, and it would be difficult to develop. You come from the academe and from the private sector, and I believe you can relate to these two discrepancies between being productive and having the human resource trained for that. So how do you think it should be done? It should be putting up academies for leadership, or universities should conduct courses on this, because that can be a little bit slow for the need. So that's my concern.
There are ways to do it, and they're not exclusive. First of all, we need to commit to train more of our people in advanced studies, be it management, be it the sciences or engineering. Okay. So far, we're lagging behind in the number of people we're sending for advanced studies abroad. If I remember correctly, I think there was a period of time when Vietnam was sending 2,000 students a year to go for masters and PhDs, while the Philippines sending not even 100 a year. Then we need to there are a number of training outfits, including yours, that could offer services to companies in the country. And the other approach, and I've seen this in a number of companies, and they recruit. While waiting for the development of our own people, they are recruiting expats. I'm sure you've seen in the companies you're with, the presence of expats occupying not low-level positions but high-level positions. So that's one alternative, but I see that as a temporary measure. Indonesia had many Filipinos, in the 80s and 90s. But when their, MBAs and other graduate students came back to Indonesia, the need for Filipinos suddenly disappeared. Those Filipino executives there are back. Now we need to regain, our leadership. When AIM in the 80s, 70s, and 80s was considered as the prime graduate school of business, we had that sort of dominance in the region, but that has long gone. But we're recovering it, and we need to continue at it. I'm surprised. Like Meta, the regional office is not in the Philippines, and all the people in the regional office are non-Filipinos. No Filipino in the regional office. So we need training,
Absolutely.
Education, and we need to improve. We need to improve the curriculum of our basic education so that students will be ready to take on the higher education. We don't need just leaders being educated, we need workers being educated as well.
Okay, thank you. I have last two questions. Fred has a 2:30, Bam. And then Jen Pascual would be the last. Okay.
Good afternoon, Secretary. I'm Gina Angango from Arms Corps Global Defense. As we know, the government is the largest procurer in the country. And yet, when we participate in government contracts, biddings, the foreign suppliers are paid immediately by letter of credit once they get the notice of award. And yet, local suppliers have to manufacture, deliver, and then chase after the disbursement voucher. So we are hoping that we can find a champion to explain to the Bureau of Treasury, because this is their new memo last May 2019, that Filipino companies, Filipino suppliers should be at least given the same benefits as a foreign supplier when bidding in our own country for our own government, or at least the same benefits, or maybe it even should be better since we are Filipinos in our own country, helping our country develop, provide employment and benefits. Thank you, sir.
Well noted. We'll work on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Jeng? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Secretary Fred, Jeng Pascual. And I think we've already established that we're not related. On a more personal side, earlier you said that this is the first time you're joining government. I think many of us here will be interested to find out, what your motivations were for joining government and accepting the appointment, maybe to serve as an inspiration to the rest of us. Thank you, sir.
Well, the motivation is to be able to contribute to the development of the country to the extent I can. I'd like to believe that I have accumulated very deep and wide experience in various fields. I've been an educator, an academic leader, an international development banker in ADB for 2 decades. I have been an advocate of governance, corporate and public governance in ICD and ISA as CEO of ICD at one point, and I've sat on the board of a number of publicly listed companies. So I've come across problems faced by corporate entities, with the government. And at this stage of my life, I think that's the most productive way I can spend the time. I've been spending a lot of time being in organizations. I'm on the board, which I all gave up. I'm on the board of at least 12 voluntary organizations. Well, we're all doing advocacy work, but being in a position to directly affect government processes, government operations, government decision making has become very appealing to me. That's why when I was asked if I wanted to join this government, I agree. It was totally unexpected. It was totally not, what do you call that, aspired for. It just happened.
Thank you, sir, and we wish you success.
Okay, so may last pahabol si Conrad. Go ahead. Sige. ICD meet ni Fred. That's the last question.
Sir Secretary, in the last 2 administrations, there has been a very high propensity to come up with industry roadmaps. At one point, I heard that there were 37 industry roadmaps that had been prepared, which indicates to me that we are not very clear on our strategic priorities. Do you have any idea what happened to these industry roadmaps, and are you going to have them reviewed for the next 6 years?
Well, when I first learned what you're telling me now, that my colleagues in DTI have prepared so many roadmaps, both DTI proper and DOI, my reaction was, to what extent have you implemented any of these roadmaps? And I told them, we're not here, we're not in a school, where we write papers, which the way I look at roadmaps, we're here to execute. So we're at the stage, of course we will review the roadmaps because we can pick up a number of important guides, guidelines or guidance from the roadmaps. But I will not anymore allow my good people to spend time just writing roadmaps. So the name of the game now is execution.
Thank you.
Implement. Thank you.
Okay. Guys, thank you. Let's thank our secretary, good secretary, Fred Pascual, for gracing us. Thank you, Fred.
Once again, a very warm round of applause for Secretary Fred Pascual. Thank you so much for enlightening and encouraging us. Thank you. And I'd like to tell everyone that we would expect to see you on August 19 for our second face-to-face MAP GMM and MAP economic briefing. And I must say it was very delightful to see a lot of you here today. So thank you everyone for joining us in behalf of the Board of Governors. This general membership Meeting is adjourned.